Today's Did You Know number is 38. That's the average age of the American first-time homebuyer in 2024. Welcome into the First Time Keys podcast. I am your host, Adam McCallister, and glad to have you part of this as we continue on for episode number 2. That's right. Today's show, a little bit different. Today, we're going to be talking with a past client of mine, Corey Wyatt. I want you to have some real-world, first-world experience as far as what have others been through? What is their real stories with their home buying journey? And so we're going to get a chance to talk to Corey and hear his story today. And I'm excited to bring that to you. By the way, speaking of bringing things to you, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons now. That way you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. And of course, all the great things we're doing here at the First Time Keys podcast. And I really do appreciate you making this part of your listening day. All right. I want to go back into that number, that age, 38. That's 10 years younger than I am right now. And it's a crazy number. It just shows you where we are right now with housing. And there's not a bigger show, I think, than the difference in income and pricing and rates and what, as a first-time home buyer, you're up against. But if I can put a little rainbows and sunshine on this and just pinpoint, if you're younger than the age of 38 and you own your home, you are already in a very small minority of folks who are killing it in this country right now. Give yourselves a round of applause. If you own your home already, or you know someone that owns their own home and they're younger than the age of 38, like seriously, they are doing the right things. You are doing the right thing if this describes you. So to pull some information from the National Association of Realtors, the age of first-time buyers today is the oldest it's been since NAR first started collecting data on the age of buyers in 1981. That's right, 81. I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten when they started recording this information. Historically, a first-time home buyer has been between the ages of 28 and 33. I was 23 when I bought my first home. That was 1999. Bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bath rancher for $90,000 and got help with closing costs. But my interest rate was right where it's at now at 6.25%, a little bit lower, about half a point. But the price greatly diminished. Now, owned that home for 22 years. And when we sold that 5 years ago, we had quite a bit of equity that we had built up. So it really helped offset the home we own now. And that's what they go on to say here. With the loss of that first home in your young 20s, buying in your late 30s also means one less move for some homeowners as they're purchasing at a later age. Saying a home buyer could skip their starter home, in essence, and move straight into a home that could, in essence, be their first family home, or a home that they're buying that allows them more space on the front end that they're able to grow into or continue growing into. So interesting numbers here, but again, there's no doubt about it. There is a serious gap between home pricing, which right now throughout the country, the average home price in America is just over $400,000, which is crazy. Now, depending on where you live, that number is going to be higher or it's going to be lower. Like, for instance, here in my area, here in South Central PA in York, Pennsylvania, our average home price is $270,000. Now, which for a lot of folks here seems crazy because I can remember just 5 years ago, pre-COVID, that same house was $180,000, $170,000. So we have seen a dramatic increase in pricing of homes. Over in Adams County, where Gettysburg is, you know the Civil War, the average home price there is $380,000. So in the town of Gettysburg, now Adams County generally lower than that, but in Gettysburg School District, the average home price is $380,000, closer to that national average. So depending on where you're moving, where do you live, that number could be lower. Again, that number could be higher. But still, at 38 years old, becoming a first-time home buyer, that's like it's mentioned here in the ad, that's 10 years of equity that somebody's losing out on because of having to start later. But you could potentially buy a better home and skip a move. But it's crazy the data that's coming out here as it relates to first-time home buyers. We're seeing less of them. Remember the first episode, the average right now is under 30%. Made up first-time home buyers of all home buyers, and a larger number of investors, both large and small. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about investing on the show, not today's show, but there are large corporate investors, but there's also a huge number of small-time investors, mom and pops, couples, single people that are now buying homes, and they're buying them as investments, whether they be long-term rentals or they're buying them as short-term rentals and Airbnbs. So a lot of different information out there, but I think one of the things we really need to work on, and this is just Uncle Adam's personal opinion, we've got to find a way to get more first-time home buyers out in the market. And I'm not sure the way we do that. One is building more homes. Two is economic information, and that is way above my pay grade. So we're going to get out of that stuff. Let's go have some fun. Today, bringing you an interview with a past client who's going to give you their real-world, first-hand experience in buying a home. We're going to be talking to my friend, my past client, Corey Wyatt, and excited to bring that to you. This is the First Time Keys podcast. So joining us today, our very first guest is Corey and Nishan Wyatt, and they are going to be homeowners officially for 1 full year as of January 12th. Corey, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys both for joining us, and I know she's just off camera. So
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we get her in frame here. So let's take this thing back. It's been almost a year since you guys have owned the home. What's been the first year as homeowners like for you guys?
It's been adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's big work. It's really nice to have our own place, like that we can call our own. Like we're not renting and throwing our money away. But there's a lot that comes with it.
Yeah. So we'll get into some of that here in a few minutes. So I want to start off with, it's 2025. Everyone loves a good origin story, whether it's the Joker or whatever else. So give me your guys' origin story. How did you guys meet?
We met at work. We both work at the same place.
And how long was, when did you guys meet, and how long was it you guys were together until you said, hey, let's go 30 years into debt together?
Right. I started at the 911 center in 2017. She started, I want to say like 2013, maybe even before that. I'm not really sure. But so we worked together for about 5 years. Until one day she says that she slid into my DMs, but it was the other way around.
The good news is that it's a mutual sliding of DMs to this day, and you both are enjoying it.
Right. But yeah, she we just one day we got together, and then 2 years later we have a kid and 30 years of debt together.
That's it moves fast, man. It moves really, really fast.
Yeah.
All right. You guys were thinking about buying a home. Tell me what was going through your mind at that time. Like you're going, okay, I think it's time we stop renting and let's look at buying a home. What were some of those things that you guys were thinking about?
So before we got together, I had a townhouse in New Freedom that I was renting, and I was completely content there. But as soon as we got together and then she got pregnant, I was like, okay, I don't want to be in a townhouse that I'm renting. I want him to have his own yard, a neighborhood to grow up in. So that's like what kind of pushed me to, like, I always wanted to own a house, but I was content not at the time. But then I just wanted him to have his own space, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. What were some of those big concerns as you were looking at, do we continue renting or, no, I definitely want to make sure he's got yard space to play in. Like, what were some of those big concerns you had making that jump from renting to home buying?
Well, where we rented in the townhouse, one, our neighbors were not great people. They were always smoking marijuana, and you could smell it through the rooms. The walls were paper thin, so you could hear the other neighbor on the other side of us arguing, yelling at their kids. And then I'm thinking, when he's waking up every 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night, they're going to be waking up, and it's going to cause problems.
So at
So that
least,
was like, yeah, that was kind of like I didn't I didn't want him to grow up smelling that stuff and then hearing all that them arguing all the time.
makes perfect sense, especially as young parents and really parents of any age, there's certain environments you don't want your kids growing up in.
Right.
So, all right. So you guys decide to make the jump and go, okay, we want to pursue buying a home. Take me from there to when we actually met.
So I had some realtors that I've worked with in the past when I was looking back in like COVID times when the interest rates were like 2%. I had some realtors that I was working with and I wasn't a fan. Then I met you and you made the process way easier for us, first off. The biggest issue that I ran into before or even when I was looking way back in the day was the down payment, closing costs, and all that stuff.
What were some of those changes that you saw from back in the 2% days to when, we had met and we were going through the process with the mortgages and down payments and stuff?
I mean, besides the interest rate being way more now, I don't really see any difference. Like even back then, I was getting outbid um, all the time. I mean, I don't know how these people were coming over with $400,000 in cash, but they were doing it, and that was I couldn't compete. You know,
Yeah, it's I remember those times. I'm not fond of them. I'm glad but at least I hope we're through them.
right?
So, because the market's drastically changed since those times.
I just want to talk to them and ask how they have that much cash. Like, what did you do? 'Cause I want that.
I remember some of them, and some of them was, and I think we maybe even talked about it at the time where some of the folks, especially that were like younger first time home buyers, were members of families that had cash, or they had a grandparent or an older parent who were sitting on a ton of equity, or they were sitting on quite the retirement fund. They're like, hey, here's 300, 400 grand, go buy your house and then refinance it and pay us back in a year.
Right.
That happened, more than a few times that I'm aware of here locally that I dealt with. What was some of the things that you noticed when we were out looking at homes? Like when you're out shopping for homes and actually in them, kind of walk me through what was going on in your mind as we were going in and out of properties.
A lot of them looked really nice on Trulia, which is what I mainly use to look for houses. But then you get it in there and you see it's just shoddy work. Like that's the one thing that I'd really noticed. So to me, I'm not like a handyman. I don't know what I'm looking for when it comes to a house. Um, you pointed out the first house that we looked at. I don't know if you remember it.
Oh, yes.
Pennsylvania Avenue in Stewartstown. That house looked great, and you're like, as I'm looking through, my dad's looking at stuff, you're looking at stuff, and I'm like, dude, I love it. You're like, you're pointing everything out that these guys are doing horrible work. Like you can get more for your money. So that's like the one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, I remember that the White House there on Pennsylvania Avenue where they double shingled, and then the conversations I had with the local municipality where they're like, "Oh yeah, that's an illegal driveway. You can't even park a car there." And we're like, "Well, then forget it. That's
Right.
that's
Like,
not going to fly."
yeah, it was awful.
All
I
right.
forgot that it didn't even have a driveway.
Oh yeah, man.
It's just a rock bed.
Yes, that's
Awful.
that house is going to be a future story that we're going to tell. So okay, so we're out looking at homes. As far as the process for home buying, what's something that you would tell someone to be prepared of? Like if you were giving someone advice in buying a house, what would be the top 3 things you would tell them?
Really make sure you have enough for the closing costs. So you don't have to stress out about that. Um, and that's great. I don't know. One would be definitely to check the HVAC of the house that you're looking at because you know our issues that we had.
Yes.
and I can't think of a third one. Drawing a blank.
I mean, other than the fact of making sure they work with me or someone I approve. But
Only use them.
that's right. That's right. I'm trying to be humble here in the new year.
It's not working too great, huh?
No. It's yeah. Look, baby steps, man. Baby steps.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about the pre-approval process for you. As you were starting that, was that intimidating at the front end, or what did it become a lot more easier once you were on the phone with the mortgage rep?
No, that didn't stress me out at all. It seemed pretty straightforward. The lady that I worked with, I can't remember her name, but she kind of just laid everything out and walked me through the process and explained the steps. And I didn't struggle or have any issues with that.
Yeah. What about through the actual mortgage process of like once we were under contract and they're asking you for a bunch of paperwork? Because that can feel overwhelming for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I forgot about that part, honestly. Every day it was like something else needed to be signed, and it was just a lot. I was telling her, I'm sitting there like it's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm getting an email. They need something signed. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. Like, I'm reading through it, trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, I try to tell folks that the first week and a half, you're just going to feel inundated with, hey, I need this paper signed. I need this paper signed, to the point where you're like, I'm not even sure what the hell I'm looking at anymore. But they say they need it, so I guess I got to get it over to them. Inspections. What was your, because we did go through a home inspection. What lessons would you tell folks, or what advice would you give folks when it comes time for the home inspection? Because, obviously you did have some HVAC issues there with that furnace.
Yeah, I think I would. So I used the one, I don't remember what the name of the company was. But I think I would get a second opinion, maybe have two inspections. If I'm putting out $300,000 for a house, I think I can put out another $500 to have a second inspection done, maybe through another company. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that he overlooked or missed or didn't test out to see if it worked. So when we moved in, one, we had the HVAC issue. Two, there was like 15 outlets in this house that didn't work at all. I had to bring an electrician in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we just recently, within the last like 2 months, got them fixed. It's just little stuff like that. I've noticed some cracks in the ceilings and stuff that I didn't see before. Like now that I'm in the house every day, I start to notice things like, hey, that was probably there a year ago, and I just never noticed it.
Right. Yeah, 'cause you get you're looking at everything wide lens, and now that you're in there and it's become home every day, now you can sort of laser focus. I didn't notice that piece before. I didn't notice this over here.
Right.
Just a little thing of
The
that.
next house that I buy, I'm going to be very in depth with the certain things that I want.
Yeah. What's with having the house now for the last year, what are there any changes that you've made to the home, or any beyond the repairs that you've delved into?
No, so there was like a rock pad out back. I got rid of that. We put a fence up. But as far as like major improvements and just interior decorating, she's done most of that. Pretty much all of that, I should say. We put a mini split in because that room, the addition in the back, didn't have any HVAC running to it.
Right.
So in the wintertime, it was freezing. In the summer, it was hot. So we got a mini split installed.
But overall, what was, from when you had first started this a couple of years ago, through it, what was your overall take, or your overall, thoughts on the process going from, hey, we're going to do this, to, holy crap, we got keys and now we got a house?
Honestly, I didn't find it very fun. I really enjoyed going and looking at other houses. But once we found houses that we liked, that part was not fun to me.
Okay.
The waiting to see if you're going to get outbid. It's like, I don't know if you remember the house in Shrewsbury,
Yes.
right before this one. I really like that house, and there's no other contracts. It's been sitting there for 3 months. I'm like, dude, this is ours. And then that day they're like, oh, we got another offer. We're taking it. Like,
Yeah.
stuff like that, it stressed me out, and I wasn't a fan.
Well, as much as you weren't a fan, neither was I. That was because there's nothing more frustrating going, hey, I think we got this, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Like you said, that's a house had been sitting for quite some time with no activity, and all of a sudden, and it happens. But it's tough to explain when you do going, and it just makes you scratch your head going, how the hell did this actually go down this way?
Right.
So, but now once we actually, we're moving forward with your home, and we had the contract on the home that is now the house that's now your home. How was that once we got into that one?
So once this one got approved, once the papers was signed, everything was smooth sailing. Except, I mean, I was stressed out. Like, I'm sitting there in an apartment that I've been renting for $900. So now I have this mortgage that I'm gonna have to pay in 2 months. Like, it was definitely different. But I like the whole like anticipating of getting in there, packing up the old place with a 2-month-old baby, and then moving into me in the year. It took us a while to get unpacked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'll be 5 years for us at the end of this month, and I can tell you we still have boxes that are still sitting in a closet that haven't been opened since we moved.
Yeah, we do so.
Yeah.
It's not important stuff. It can all go in the trash.
Yeah, hey, at this point, it's been years. I really didn't need it after all.
Right.
Um, what are some of the lessons you learned in the last year going from renting to now homeowning?
There's a lot more responsibility that comes with it. Like before, when stuff would break in the apartment, call the landlord, everything's good. Now we're stressing out to make sure we have a reputable company coming out first, because when we had the HVAC, we had a couple people come out and we were still having issues.
Mm.
So, the one thing I would say is just make sure you do your research on who you're bringing
Yeah.
out to fix stuff.
And anything else that was a major adjustment for you, or mental mindset shift you had to do in the last year?
No, it was just really making sure all your bills are lined up, getting everything started. Once you're in it, but getting started, like getting the electric set up, your utility set up.
Yeah.
As far as like anything else, no, I can't think of anything.
Got it. Got it. Any other, words of wisdom, words of advice you give anybody who's thinking about getting a new home in 25 or 26?
When you're looking at your house, don't have tunnel vision. Even though it looks great, just make sure you're looking for the little stuff. One, look at your HVAC system, make sure your outlets work, make sure the heat and the air is working. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Just don't have tunnel vision when you walk into a house that you like.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
That was
That
it.
stuff I tell everybody is like, hey, don't get hung up on the glittery, shiny objects. Dig into what's really there.
Everything looks great because it's just freshly remodeled, but go through and just look at little stuff. Like, make sure everything's done to quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So based on the experience that you had, and it sounds like the biggest thing would have been calling in almost like an HVAC specialist or electrical contractor after the inspector had gone through. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Don't
Yeah.
buy a house with a heat pump. It's awful. That's another piece of advice.
I mean, I mean, I know you said you added the mini split to the back room. Um, and I remember you the fireplace there on that first floor.
Yeah, we haven't even used that yet.
Okay. Um, what's the drawbacks with the heat pump that you've had?
One is we have a fairly large house. I feel like it's 2,600 square feet or 2,400, something like that.
Yeah.
The heat pump, man, it's always when it gets cold like it is today.
Yeah.
It's always running on auxiliary heat. So one, I'm stressed out that my electric bill is going to be like $500 this month. And when it's pushing out heat, it's like lukewarm. It's not pushing out hot air. It's warm.
Okay.
So it's a split level. The HVAC's in the basement, the main unit. So right by the front door, I mean, it's the front door. It's right next to the air. It's going to be a little cold.
Yeah.
But then where I am right now, which is like a room next to the front door, this room's cold. But then you get upstairs. Upstairs is cold. But then if you get downstairs, it's hot.
Yeah.
And in the back room, you have the mini split that I have running at 72 degrees. And that room's hot. It's just, I can't level out the house. I can't make it all one temperature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like his room right now, I have the baby monitor up. It's 67 degrees in there, but I have my heat set to 69 and it's been running for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah.
I wish I had the money to just rip out the heat pump and then put propane in. You know what I mean?
All right. We'll kind of wrap this up. Anything you want to touch on? Anything that we haven't talked about yet that you're like, hey, I really want people to know this stuff.
Now I feel like we kind of went over everything. It's just really try to like consciously think about the tunnel vision part. Cause I had that with almost every house that I really liked that we went into.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this looks great. Let's jump on it. With the tunnel vision of like, this is where I'm going to raise my family at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to try to widen your vision a little bit.
Corey, it's been good to catch up, man. I appreciate you being honest and letting, with all this stuff, man, because it helps me.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that will help more people coming in. So
Absolutely. And I guess the only other lesson you would say is um, there should be a special discount for Ravens fans, and we
yep.
we apply that discount oppositely to anybody wearing black and gold.
Yes. If there you go. If you wear black and gold, it's the interest rate doubles.
Okay.